What is up, everybody? Had to be done with another Returnal video for you. Today we're going to be talking about the Electropylon Driver. So you might have seen my previous video, it was about the Holoseeker. This will have a similar format. We're going to be looking at the traits and then a little bit of a showcase. I'm going to show you my playstyle with the driver. So let's start. You have the trait list there on the right. Let's have a quick read through and the explanation for each of them. So the first one is the protective pylons. That will give you an extra bit of defense when you're near the pylons. Then you have blade pulse, which is an offensive one. For that, every time you hit melee, you hit with your sword, there's a little pulse that comes from the pylons doing additional damage. You have the Sylphium extractor, which increases the chance of the hostiles dropping Sylphium upon killing, and an Obolite extractor, which is the same, but then for money. You have the blade harmonizer, which increases your sword damage, and you have the streamlined chamber, which would increase your fire rate a little bit. The pylon web, which is probably one of the most popular ones, where once you shoot, instead of shooting just one pylon, it shoots a little web of them, so it already makes a nice little pattern for you. And large chamber for extra rounds in your magazine, and finisher for additional damage once the target is low on health. And for my showcase run, I decided to pick kind of your average Electropylon driver rather than going for an OP one. If you go on Reddit, if you go on the Returnal subreddit, you'll see a lot of people talking about this gun as the easy mode on the game. And I gotta say, even though it's not one of my favorites, it definitely holds up to that reputation. The way you want to play with the driver is not by really thinking of hitting your targets directly all the time, unless you're in a room like this one where you just have the one. You want to create a pattern to try and cover as much of the map as possible and to somewhat link the enemies. You got to remember that this is damage over time. Maybe think about it almost as poison if you want to compare it to other games. As you can see here, I'm doing mostly fractured wastes for this demo because I find that this is one of the most difficult biomes in the game for sure, and definitely the one that got me stuck for the longest. With this weapon, considering its damage over time, that you have the option to tag your enemy and just go to safety. You know, you can see me doing that right here. I'm keeping myself protected while the malformed enemy is taking loads and loads of damage. I only got hit once in this fight, I believe. And this would easily be a massive challenge had I had a different gun. And this I find to be a great example of its power, because this is a room with a lot of frost severed. We're going to see some drones. We have a variety of opponents with a lot of different behaviors, so it does show the versatility of the Electropylon driver. I do get hit a bunch, but you can also see how just by tagging the dogs and the severed and just remaining mobile and staying away from trouble, that you can see on the minimap the number of enemies just decreasing time after time. And even the drones, who we all know are a big pain. One tag and I can sling away, and by the time I look back, they're already gone. Considering on this run I had the blade harmonizer, you can see that I'm making use of the sword quite a bit. What you want to do when you're playing with the Electropylon driver is tag the enemies and keep them staggered. The sword is a massive stagger tool, so it's great when they're close by to tag them, hit them with the sword, and then dash out. In that way you keep yourself safe. You're making use of those iframes, and as well as the burst damage, you have the damage over time taking them away. And one last room in the fractured wastes before we have a look at a boss fight. For the boss fight for this video I picked Ophion, but this really shows how a mix of using your melee attack and just tagging the enemies and dashing to the next one is extremely effective, even when we get to the last hostile, which has quite a bit of health. You can see just getting a nice little shape for us to look at and moving away and waiting for the fight to end. And now for a bit of our boss fight, I picked the second phase of Ophion. You can see the ridiculous amount of damage this weapon does. I'm just tagging the lights and making sure that all of the eyes have a pylon damaging them, and you can see what must this be? This must be about 15 seconds and we're done with the phase from the last boss. This is what I got to tell you about the Electropylon today. If you liked the video, drop a like. If you got anything to say, leave a comment. And if you want to see some more, subscribe. And I'll see you next time I upload. Bye.